Good morning and a warm welcome to you to today's webinar on creating an agile organization, how to dominate your industry sector. Traditional businesses models often struggle to keep up with rapid changes in technology, customer expectations, and market trends. In this webinar, we'll delve into the core principles of Agile, explore real-world examples of success, and equip you with the tools and strategies to implement Agile in your own organization. My name is Imachila Takin. I'm a Trade Services Manager at the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce, and I'm happy to introduce the moderator for today's webinar. Femi Odelusi brings over 25 years of rich experience in executive organizational transformation and personal development coaching. He's a professional coach who helps individuals, teams, leadership, and organizations to be the best they can be. He utilizes his dynamic approach to empower leaders and teams, particularly in navigating complex organizational changes. His credentials include being an ICF-ACC accredited coach, an EMCC Global Individual Accredited Practitioner Level Coach, ORSC Trained Coach, a Scrum Alliance Certified Agile Coach. He is the Director of Education and Credentialing Standards for International Coaching Federation Nigeria Charter Chapter. He is a champion and international speaker on workplace diversity, inclusion, and eradicating unconscious bias, and a wide range of other topics, including culture-led organization transformation and bringing the values, ethics, and competencies of professional coaching into agile coaching. He has a passion for guiding teams and the leadership of organizations on their agile maturity journey and partnering with them as they maximize and leverage the business benefits in today's dynamic global markets. His coaching philosophy centers on ethical practice, continuous improvement, and fostering a culture of adaptability and resilience. He has applied this philosophy in coaching, mentoring, and training the leadership of organizations in their thought leadership journey. His ever-growing list of accreditations are listed below. He's a credentialed International Coaching Federation coach, EMCC Global Accredited Individual Accreditation Practitioner Level, ORSC Trained Coach, accredited by Scrum Alliance as a Certified Agile Coach, Certified Team Coach. He is accredited by the International Consortium of Agile as an Agile Certified Coach. He combines this with accreditation of Agile team facilitation. His other specialties include speaking at corporate events, example, the coaching circles, Regional Scrum Gathering Egypt, the first ever Regional Scrum Gathering Nigeria 202, 2024, Agile Practitioners Meetup Groups, ETC, mentorship, training in a variety of specialist disciplines and facilitating events. The ultimate objective he always strives for is, with each encounter, to leave people better off than he found them. He shares one parting comment in professional engagement. There is no mountain that is too high, nor is there a valley too deep to stop you achieving your goal. The best way to reach him is via LinkedIn, and we will put his LinkedIn link in the chat section so you can follow him. Thank you, and over to you, Femi.
Wow, Immaculata, very, very well. Thank you very much for that introduction. I feel flattered myself. I can't really believe that, all that you mentioned is about me. But I do appreciate that. And I do want to mention to the panelists and to all the participants at today's webinar that I feel honored to be here, and I hope that you share that feeling of being privileged, being honored to be with us today. I'm just going to share very briefly with us the order in which today's session is going to run. So we've just had that wonderful welcome by Makalata King on behalf of UKGCC. And basically, what I've got to do is, my job is possibly the simplest of all today because I'm just here to moderate the conversation. I do have a wealth of experience as well, but today's not about me. So you probably wouldn't be hearing too much from me, unfortunately, because of the limited time we've got. Now, with what I've just said, we have a panel today. And our panel consists of my dear coach, Kwesi Owusu Asamani, who is the founder and chief executive officer of Oak Agility. And our co-panelists today, if all of you were here, that you would able to put your cameras on, I would have asked for everyone to give us a standing ovation and a big round of applause for our co-panelist, Umesh Jetha. Umesh is the CIO, he's the CIO retail member, data and protection. I'm just going to spend a few seconds to talk about how this event will run. So we got up to 11:25 to field questions to the panelists for them to share their experience to the questions that I'm going to be putting to them. It's going to be co-creative, and we're going to ask all the participants to use the chat, the Q&A function, to field questions as we go along so that we can actually have it more inclusive and interactive. By 11:25, we hope to wrap up and then have an opportunity to come up with some closing remarks. And hopefully by 11:30, we hope to finish off completely. 12:30, I meant to say, because we're in different time zones. Okay, so I'm going to spend just a few moments to talk about our panelists today, and I'll present their profile to you. I'll start off with Kwasi Owusu Asumani. Pardon me if I keep calling him Kwesi or Kwasi. I've been told it's actually Kwesi. Kwesi Owusu Asumani is the founder and the chief executive officer of Oak Agility Limited and Oak Agility UK, Oak Agility Ghana, pardon me. He's a highly experienced director and enterprise management consultant. He's been responsible for partnering with executives to design, mobilize, and execute complex business strategies. He's a professional ICF coach, and I can attest to that. Selfishly, I call him my coach. He's a systems thinker. He's a solution-focused consultant. Kwesi is a board of director member for People Charity in Oxford, UK. And this is the point that everybody gives Kwesi a big round of applause, which gives me the opportunity to now move on to share with you the profile of Umesh Jetha, CIO retail member, data and protection. Now, I actually paused a little bit when I saw Umesh's profile and I thought, I'm going to steal one of those journey maps so that I can also be an Umesh Jetha part 2 or version 2 because it's so impressive. Umesh is retail CIO and he's accountable for customer, fraud, anti-money laundering, AML, fin crime, financial crime, and data. He has a phenomenal track record of leading transformational change to create a sustainable step change in performance, nurturing teams to drive improved ways of working, and value delivery through customer journey digital transformation, which enables understanding of how to drive value in process and technology alongside. And the end result is the creation of innovative solutions which help address business problems. Umesh is adept at building high performance teams. And this is also the point that I hear people give a virtual big round of applause for Umesh. Thank you all very much. Now, I want to take a moment just to share with you the objectives of this webinar. We only have a few objectives in mind. The first one is that we hope, it is our intention, to provide an overview of the concept of business agility and agile organizations. This would enable us to discuss the benefits of adopting an agile approach in today's business environment. And moving on from that, it's our intention to explore strategies for fostering agility within organizations. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to showcase real-world examples of how organizations have successfully embraced agility and achieved industry dominance. And finally, we intend to provide an open platform for questions, discussion, and sharing of knowledge. Now, when we achieve these objectives, we hope to experience some outcomes. Okay, so that by the end of the webinar, it is our absolute intention that you would have achieved a practical experience of strategies and best practices for fostering agility within your respective organizations, including cultural aspects, leadership approaches, and how to leverage technology and data. There's going to be a huge chunk of time devoted to data. And you all know what we're talking about when we say data in today's world. Now, it's also our intention to ensure that participants have a better approach, which would equip you to respond effectively to market trends, disruptions, and competitive challenges by implementing agile principles and methodologies. Now, what we also have in mind is to ensure that you're able to gain valuable insights into how various organizations across the world have successfully embraced agility and achieved industry dominance, providing actionable takeaways for implementation. All we encourage you to do is try them out. Now, this webinar will facilitate networking and collaboration among various participants. Feel free to share your LinkedIn profile so that people can create networks beyond here. And that would allow you for exchange of ideas, experiences, best practices in agile organizational management. Can I kindly ask our behind the scenes facilitators to please drop the LinkedIn profile of Kwesi and Umesh into chat so that they can actually start to develop the network from this point onwards. So with that said, we want to move on with the agenda for today's session. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Kwesi, please, because he's going to just share very briefly with us all about Oak Agility. Over to you, Kwesi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Femi. It's a wonderful introduction to everyone. So welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here as a partnership, as Oak being a board member of a member organization for UK GCC, and we're putting this together just to share some things with you. And we're delighted to have Umesh here, really a seasoned executive in the world of transformations. So I'll just take 2 minutes just to talk to you a bit about Oak, who we are and what we do. I'll just share my screen really quick, and then we will just get into the meat because I'm sure that's what you are here for. So who are we? Oak Agility, we provide management consultancy and business agility services. We help organizations look at who they are, how they work, and how they want to improve going forward, and how they want to really achieve and target their outcomes that they seek. We offer human capital development, so a lot of training, leadership development trainings, team training, management training, and also team coaching, and a few other things that we offer in that space. We do deliver and offer, as Femi said, we have ICF credentialed coaches within our organization and our network, and we offer executive and leadership coaching services, so one-to-one targeted executive and leadership coaching, which we partner with you to work with you on all varieties of things that you want to improve on individually, but also focusing on your organizations and how you wish to lead and how you wish to step in. And then we bring our change management expertise also to help you in terms of, as we said, we help you design, mobilize, and execute. So in that whole execution piece, we help deliver that. We roll up our sleeves and we help walk with you in this change and everything you're trying to do there. So that's a bit high level of what we do. So what is our mission? We really aim to activate your business, or any business for that matter, on the global map by really helping you build impactful solutions. And this is key. There are are many organizations that are going through the motions of delivering all sorts of things. Whether they're impactful or not is subjective, but we really put you through those thinking process and those the whole process of making sure that whatever you're delivering, solutions-wise, services, products, hardware, whatever it is really impactful to your customers, and then also really picking up who your customers are. So that's really key for us. And we do this by, you will hear a lot more about some of the topics we have for you, but that's essentially it. We do it by incrementally going faster and delivering that value. And we do this with best-in-class, purposeful management consultancy techniques, right? So that's our mission. We have our way of doing things. We will always meet you where you are. So we call it the Agility way. And it's a 3-step process. We meet you where we are. We together with you assess what is your needs, what are the things that you're trying to improve and trying to solve, so that it's all about you. It's never about us. We don't want to have our agenda, never. It's you that we put in front of us. We assess together, we scope what is important, what is not important, throw away what is waste and not needed in terms of attention-wise that you will get benefit from, and then we act. Action is really key for us. We really thrive in taking steps forward and acting. So that's what we do, and we go again. We're so cyclic in our process. So we continuously flow with you. So very quickly, some of the clients that we work with, past and present, and including some that we partnered with to deliver services to other clients. This is not the exhaustive list, but just something for you to see. We're currently based in the UK and Ghana, and that's where we're operating from. And just some of the clients the locations of our clients we worked with. You only seeing 4 because we do a lot of work with the US, Europe, across Europe, several clients across Europe. Also in Asia, we've done some work with a client in Hong Kong and Africa, right? So we've gone for the continent rather than individual clients. Otherwise, the pins will be, the map will disappear, especially UK and Europe. UK is so tiny, you will not even see UK if we put all the maps, all the pins in there. So that's it, really quick, something about us. That's all I wanted to share. And then hopefully you can hear a bit more about what we do, who we are in terms of the conversation that I'm about to have with Umesh. So thank you, Femi, over to you.
This is the point that we also ask our participants to give another virtual round of applause, even though we cannot see you, we know you're cheering us on. I'm just going to ask the facilitator in the background. We have a chat question for you, Immaculata. Are we good to go with a question? Thank you, Immaculata. Feel free to share with us. Or maybe I should make a start. How about that? I live as a coach, but in my organization, my title is organizational and behavioral coach. So what do people say? Yeah. What I'd like to do in the first instance is I'd like to pose the first question to Umesh, okay? And why is this question pertinent? It's in the context of today's topic. So Umesh, what does it mean to create an agile organization?
Yeah, thank you, Femi, and thanks for the warm welcome and introduction. I had the pleasure of working with Kwasi for a number of years as well, so I can definitely, I like his slides. Actually, they've evolved significantly since we first met, but I can definitely tell you the value of working in a different way. For me, apart from the season comment, it makes me feel quite old, but the point for me about agility and working in an agile environment is about you trying to change where you're working, the values and the culture to be much more modern, but also in a way of maximizing the potential of humans. So just to kind of bring that to life, I was thinking about this morning. A lot of the practices we have today where we do delivery in software, technology, whatever topic you work on, is based on kind of Taylorism and Fordism, right? So we're talking about practices from the 1940s or earlier that we're using in 2024. And with that, you know, comes words, and words are a language which are very powerful to kind of drive change in thinking, a diversity of thought, not just kind of diversity in terms of D&I, but diversity in thought particularly. Because what you're doing is you're challenging the status quo of how you're trying to evolve the organization. And agility for me is about how you're going to experiment to try and do things in a different way, to try and to try and maximize that human potential and move away from practices from the 1940s. You know, there's things like milestones. So we've heard of the term milestone, right? Milestone is a concrete structure, which, you know, if I look in where I am in the UK, they're buried 6 feet under, right? And you see a small portion at the top. That's an immovable object. So you putting a milestone down it's you know, the etymology of that word is it's never going to change. Now in life, we know now, in anything we're doing in data and digital, we know that we're going to embark on changing something for the betterment of our customers, for the betterment of our organizations. But in doing so, we know we don't know all the answers. We don't even know all the questions when we start. So how do we create a milestone? We can't. So it's about how do you incrementally build that confidence in doing something different. Another word which springs to mind is deadline. So I don't know if you know the etymology of the word deadline. It's from the American Civil War. They drew a line across a fence, and if you crossed it, they shot you, right? You died.
Interesting.
And we're using that for delivery, for planning, for changing the way we do work. That doesn't seem particularly agile. So I think in trying to do things in a different way, it's changing the way we're working, but it's also changing the language and the behaviors. And you know, if they've been in your organizations from the 1940s, it's very difficult to change. So this is for me, being an agile organization and driving to agility is about how do you change the behaviors and the culture of your organization. Yes, you can drive software quicker. Yes, you can build new tech. Yes, you can do data. But if the people can't be more agile in their mindset, you can't really move towards an agile organization. I don't know if that answered your question, Femi, but that's
it absolutely does. Thank you very much. I'm just going to paraphrase using 3 words: milestones, deadlines, agility. And I'm going to ask Kwasi, what would you like to add to that?
Oh, it's very hard to add to that, Umesh. That's absolutely spot on. I also have that cultural fit piece as so key. So you mentioned customer focus elements in there, because that whole incremental piece of building the people element is so key, because any organization is as good as the way the people within the organizations are looked after and built, right? That focus enables everyone to really step in and take hold of their structures around them. Obviously, leadership also has to have some input in there. So I think for me, I'll add customer focus. So an agile organization really has that dialed in around that whole customer centricity and the customer focus, because that's the North Star for the organization. Anything else is just the distraction. Are we serving our customers? Then the people, so Umesh just talked about all of that cultural fit, the people, that's critical to look after. Leadership also, so, and again, Umesh, fantastic leader in his thinking and his innovative ways of working. Having that leadership drive and thinking differently as a leader to do all of these things, looking after your people, looking after the structures that you have built within your organization. Is it enabling or disabling you as an organization to be agile, right? So that's a question to ask. Does my processes that I've built disable us to move faster? I mean, ask that question. And go into that. And then also that appetite and thirst for continuous improvement. Never settle for this is who we are and what we do, and that's it. Always look for that marginal gain, marginal improvement, because that's what really moves you forward, and especially in this day and age. It cannot sit still.
I'm going to use one word there: fascinating. Thank you very much, Kwasi. You talked about culture. You talked about people. You also talked about leadership, and I was actually waiting for more. And then you gave us one more: continuous improvement. And with the presence of mind from all our participants here, please feel free to take notes. Even though this has been recorded and will be shared with you later, there's a process with an agility mindset that when you write what you hear, you remember later. And on that note, I'm going to move on to the next question, because we have quite a lot of questions. We did a survey before we actually started this webinar. So we were actually given a long list of questions. Unfortunately, we've shortened them down. So we will do our best to get through them. Now, Umesh, I'm going to come back to you. And this is Simon Sinek in mind. And you know what's coming now. 3 letters.
Start with why.
Absolutely. Why? Why is it important in this current business climate to have business agility?
I kind of bled on it in the first question we asked, right? And I don't have all the answers either, because I think we're still all learning, and I'm definitely learning on this journey. But for me, the landscape's changing so much. So let's bring it to practical, right? Practical perspective, and Kwasi kind of led us down that path. I work in a customer organization. So I did work at Nationwide. I've just recently moved 25 days ago to work for the biggest insurer, which is Aviva.
Congratulations
Thank
to you.
And it's a very customer-centric organization, which is brilliant, right? To serve your customers. But in order to understand your customers, you need to understand the journeys they go through, right? Walking their steps. How many of our organizations where you work, and I noticed a couple of titles there, your Scrum Masters or your quality people, I would challenge you now to go, how many of you actually understand how the customer does business with you? Do you know their friction points? Do you know their pain points? Because the landscape's changing so much. There's so many new entrants in insurance and banking and those type of environments. But also with that, change is required quickly. So we talk a lot, the buzzwords at the moment, they used to be digital, now they're Gen AI, right? Who's using Gen AI? Every day I get asked, where are we going to use Gen AI? And the question is, for what? For what purpose are we going to use Gen AI? Are we going to try and improve the claims process and automate it and take out human involvement in it to make it more automated, to allow our people to do better jobs and to do things that are less kind of repetitive and probably not as taxing on humans? Are we trying to improve engagement with customers? Are we trying to? But the big thing for me to answer your question is that changes those changes around the environment was happening every 6 months, maybe every year. Now those changes are happening in weeks. Our competitors, our customers, their trends are changing on a weekly basis, in some cases on a daily basis. So how do you react to that? And having an organization where you are static and working in cycles of quarters or months or years or milestones, whatever it is, it doesn't allow us to be flexible. It doesn't allow us to go, actually, we were going left and now we're going to need to go right. It doesn't allow us to move at pace. And Kwasi mentioned it there around the processes. Do your processes in your business allow you to be flexible? Do they allow you to change quickly? And bringing in an example just to life very quickly, just to kind of bring it to life, is Kwasi and I worked on a mortgage transformation for Nationwide. And the first question was, how quickly can we build a mortgage journey for the customers? And it's like, the first question we asked was like, so which journey are we going to go after? Right? And we didn't know. And then while we're building that journey out for kind of our mortgage customers in kind of brokers, we realized that the journey changed. In 8 months, that journey changed. So we had to rebuild it. That's the world we're going into now, is these static capabilities, these static views we're building. Whatever we're going to do today, by the time we finish it, it would have changed. The needs would have changed. The technology would have changed. The people would have changed potentially in terms of how they're thinking, what their mindsets are. The leaders might have changed. So in that rapidly changing environment, how can you maximize the flexibility of agility? Kwasi, I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. I was thinking, is there anything I would add here? No, I honestly, Umesh, I can't. My thoughts are spot on. Like really, absolutely spot on.
So the key takeaway from that, change is constant. The frequency of change is what matters most in creating an agile organization. And one of the key points that I mentioned that people want to take away today is how to dominate your industry sector. So you've just dropped the first real life experience using Nationwide as your case study of what you need to do. Change is constant. We need to be mindful of the frequency of that change and be adaptable. Thank you so much for that, Umesh. Now, I'm going to move on to the next question. And this is for you, Kwasi. With what we've just heard in mind, what are the core values that underpin an agile organization?
Right. Okay. So just picking up right from the top. So for those that are not really familiar with Agile as a way of working, a way of being, or methodology or process, it's known many things. It's known by many names. There are four values that sort of underpins it, in 12 principles. Talks about the focus on individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Talks also about a working solution over comprehensive documentation, just sitting there just creating documents on end without actually providing anything that actually works, a solution that works you can really get feedback from. Talks about being able to collaborate with your customers rather than just hiding behind contracts. Contracts are important. We are all in business. We need contracts, but it's the way of doing it, right? And then being responsive to change rather than just, again, stuck behind plans. As Umesh was talking about, deadlines and milestones, all of that, like getting stuck behind that, being very responsive, very reactive, very flexible. So those are like 4 core values, but underneath that, there are 12 things. We're not going to go in through that. And that's not my focus for this question. What I want to kind of put on the table around some of the values that should, core values that an agile organization should focus in on. And I'll come back to some of the things that both Umesh and I have been talking about. So relentless, I'll use the word relentless here because this is the age that everything's relentless. Well, everything you're about to hear is about relentless at the beginning of it. So relentless pursuit of customer satisfaction. That is one of the core values that I would put on the table, because if you are not relentlessly figuring out who your customers are, who your real customers are, and as Umesh was talking about, the monkey journey is changing in the period of time that we were building it. We were discovering all sorts. We were discovering the needs of our customers were changing, right? And that is the pace. And we did this many years back. Now, you'll be literally changing your your needs pretty much every week if you're not lucky, or it depends on the sector you're in. So that relentless pursuit to understand your customers and be able to satisfy them is really key. That should be your drive as a leader constantly. Relentless pursuit of value delivery, right? And by being able to shorten that feedback loop, as Umesh was talking about, that length of time. Now, the feedback loop is insanely short. We have demographics and consumers who literally get distracted by the next shiny thing by the hour on TikTok. And I'm like literally, not even by the hour, by the minute. So that shorter feedback loop is key, right? And making sure that you're delivering value. If you're not delivering the value, they will go elsewhere. They will see that next thing on TikTok, so they will go. Relentless pursuit to eliminate waste. So that whole bit that we talked about in terms of processes that really don't enable you or don't help you, making sure you have lean processes, make sure you eliminate those waste in your system, in your organization, to enable you to really be faster, if that's the end goal. But I wouldn't focus too much on being fast. I would focus on being impactful and being value driven and targeting your customers well enough. The fast will come. Focus on the core things and then it will come, right? There's all fundamental structures that needs to be put in place. Then that cultural fit that Umesh was talking about at the beginning, the people within your organization, the people within your house, your home. I'll call your organization your house, because that's what you should treat it as, right? You look after those people, they will look after your outcomes, your objectives, your goals, like their own. Right? As a CEO, the way I run my organization is everyone in the organization is CEOs, right? And you can ask any of my people, and they'll talk to you exactly like that. They feel like they own some of the outcomes, right? So that focus is key. And as a leader, I think that cultural and engaged cultural fit is key. And then I'm coming to it. The leader yourself, you need to do work. As a core value, it should be people first leadership, whatever that means. And if you assess yourself, if you go deep, if you go within, and you ask 5 people that they're not your best friends in the office, 5 people that you think they will give you real good feedback by a diverse spread of people, that's the feedback, that's how you're showing up. So I want to encourage you to do that. But yeah, that leadership with a people first leadership, also quite key to kind of bring everything together. These are some of the things that I had in mind. I don't know, Umesh, if there is anything you throw in there as well or not.
Yeah, I think building what you just said, Kwasi, I think I agree with everything you said there. I think the bit for me is you need some sponsorship wherever you're going in an organization. You're going to change things. You need someone to help or aid, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to be a bit different, and that difference in aspects of life is always a challenge, right? So you might not be accepted, you might not be valued in a sense, because you're trying to change the way you're working. People have tried it before. Why would you succeed? So you've got to bring people on the journey. And I think linked to that, the other word I'd use is resilience. If you think this is the right thing to do, you're driving the outcomes forward, you're doing things in a different way, you've got a plan, you've got some sponsorship, you've got your team, and you're bringing the work to the teams rather than building teams around work, then you've got to be resilient, right? You've got to be really resilient, protect that team, protect your core values, and champion it everywhere. And sometimes that takes a personal toll on you as leaders, right? And that's something you got to think about.
Yeah, thank you so much, panelists, for what you've shared there. Relentless pursuit. We can actually have another webinar on those 2 words, relentless pursuit, because that was broken down into so many different dimensions. We also talked about the feedback loop, cultural fit. You can package all that. I like the way, Umesh, how you actually brought resilience to life. Because in so many organizations, we hear these words just dropped here and there by leaders. What are they? They're words, but you've packaged it in such a way that you actually brought it to life. It now has, it's now recognized as a breathing entity on its own. And thank you so much for that. Now, I want to move on because we still have quite a few questions to go. And I want to go back to you, Umesh. How does an agile organization differ from a conventional organization in terms of their structure and operations? Now, before you answer, I want to cast my mind back to 2 words you used earlier on, milestones and deadlines. So they're still applicable to this question, but I know you've got a few more in your arsenal. Over to you, please.
Yeah, so look, I've had the pleasure of working with some amazing teams, right, in my time. So the introduction of everything's amazing, but it's not for me. It's for those teams that did the work. And I was just very, very humble and very gracious to be involved in those processes, and I had a small part, hopefully, in that success. But with any organization, and particularly the ones I've been in, they've been quite large, and so every organization uses the word milestones and roadmaps and plans and everything else, right? All those words, and I've done seminars like this and webinars on that with the exco to go. We do realize we're working with things from the 1940s and it's now 2024. But behaviors take a long time to change. So you need to help the organization go through that shift. But what does successful kind of agile organizations differ from conventional, in my mind, is it's how do they translate that? So there's a real worry, and Kwasi and I talked about this, I think it was post 2017 when we started working together, Kwasi, was around, we can go too far the other way. So we take the Agile Manifesto, we can take the books I'm reading on project product or team topologies, and I do recommend those 2 books, right, on how to set up agile organizations or teams or cells within your organization to make a difference. But what I would say is the main difference between conventional teams and kind of more business agile teams is, you have line of sight regardless of what your role you do. Scrum Master, product owner, product manager has the same view and articulation of the outcome. What are you trying to achieve? Step 1. Step 2, every single one of you knows how to measure it, right? So I was talking today to one of my teams, and they were talking about, how do we manage prospects, customers, so people that aren't actually customers yet, that have a policy with us. Okay, we talked about the sales funnel and how many people drop out, and every single person in that team understood how that works and how they're going to measure it. And thirdly, they're passionate about how to change and improve that journey, that relentlessness we just talked about. Now, but just to kind of bring it back to reality, the organization still does planning on a quarterly basis. The organization still have milestones. And so you've got to be the advocate to translate how you're working in an agile environment back to those business goals. And then you got to slowly chip away at changing the status quo. And the main thing for me is, and Kwasi mentioned it, do you go more at pace in an agile organization? I think you do. However, I think the word isn't actually pace, it's about consistency. So I can consistently go left or right in a repeatable manner, regardless if I'm building a, if my outcome is peeling a banana or, getting an apple or whatever it is we're doing, building a mobile app, doing fraud service, we are now consistent in the way we're doing it. And that pace and that kind of capability is done in a consistent way. And I think the last thing I'll leave you with is the team you are building that are more agile or building that business agility, those people might change in and out very infrequently, but they're the people that run that part of your business. They do the business change, they do the tech change, they do the data, they own the customer. And I think that's when you start to realize you've got an agile organization, because you're not chopping and changing. You're not going through these massive project life cycles, start a new project, let everyone go, finish. Those are the types of things that change. Kwasi, anything I missed?
So I just wanted to pick on the point you mentioned about how to measure the outcomes. I absolutely love it. Being able to measure, having that visibility and transparency in terms of how you're going, where you're going is absolutely spot on. And that consistency builds predictability and confidence. It absolutely builds confidence, because then based on whatever feedback that you are getting consistently, because you are being consistent in everything you're doing, you are confident that you're on the right track, or you're not, and you are predictable in doing that. So yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that I will emphasize, as you've mentioned, around the people being so dynamic in the way that they run business change, they do this bit, they do that bit, they're doing the tech change, because then they've become so critical in the way that you've enabled the environment and the system for them to be so motivated to be doing and learning so many different things. The knowledge is there, the passion is there, and that passionate drive, as we talked about, it's also there. So then that means people don't feel or see themselves as being on a sort of a battleground map saying, you go that way because that project is sinking, we need you to go and salvage it, or you go here because we're starting a new project. It's like there's a bigger vision and a bigger cause, and they know and they understand where they're going in that direction. So the people aspect again becomes so critical. So key.
Thank you so much for that, Kwasi. By the way, the interaction is going on in the Q&A section. Please keep your questions coming. We have dedicated time to address them. So we're going to move on with questions now. And what we're going to do now is kind of step up a little bit in terms of time so that we can manage, because we're partway through our long list. Okay. So I'm going to continue with you, Kwasi. Yes. Are there any common misconceptions about agile organizations that you'd like to talk about today?
Yes, just real quick, maybe some bullet points here. Sometimes it might feel, or there might be, it might be like, oh, those agile people is just for software only, or it's not for the rest of the organization. We are okay. It's just some software developers. Just give it to them and they're fine. As if it's a tangible token thing. So that's a common misconception that is seen, but there's something bigger about the whole piece, and that's hopefully the audience listening to some of the real life practical applications of what Umesh has been sharing. You can actually quite see that it's a real business operations, business agility side of things. So that's one thing. Sometimes it might feel chaotic, so people feel it's like a Wild West zone. But that's again back to the point of if you're not intentional about going into this or having the right help or the right support or knowledge or experience, then you might just throw in change into your organization, which is already so loaded or so busy with so many things and the direction is not, so it might feel, even Wild West, it will feel real in that sense. But yeah, there is a whole approach to really intentionally launching this. So when Umesh and I got together nationwide, when we're working on this, I mean, Umesh had a whole approach to, we had our backlog of what needed to be focused on. We had a whole vision board and we dissected everything in terms of how we are going about everything. So there's a whole piece around that, and that helps with that structure piece. It is not a silver bullet. Just to mention that as a misconception, people might feel, let's just slap Agile onto the organization and we're fine, we're good, we solved it. No, it's far from it. It takes work, and hopefully everything we've been talking about, you can sense that you have to also really turn up and show up and be intentional about actually what you want and how you want to shape your organization towards there is never a destination. I never talk about destination. It's about how you're continuously evolving and where you're going and what you're looking to do. So
absolutely,
yeah, that's all I would say. There's a ton of it. I don't know.
and what you've just shared there, not a silver bullet. Hold that thought for 1 minute, and I just want to ask Immaculata to kind of go back to chat, okay? And we just want to engage with questions. Before we do that, we've got one question from Doris John. We've got a contextual question from Henry Abraham. We will come to your questions soon. Please bear with us. We have a chat interactive question for our participants. We'd like to know how many of you here are familiar with business agility. Immaculata, please take that on board and help us sort of manage that. So whilst that is going on, I want to move on with the next question. And we're now going to go back to the context that was just shared with us. We heard the name Nationwide. So I want to ask Umesh, Umesh, we like a challenge. And oftentimes when I have leaders, one of the things I say to our leaders is, can you wrap this up in 60 seconds? So here's my challenge. Umesh, in 60 seconds, can you paint a picture of a simple high-level Agile at scale vis-a-vis business agility? You've mentioned Nationwide a number of times. Over to you, please.
So for me, business agility at Nationwide was about how do you take the oldest, I'll try and do it in 60 seconds, the oldest building society in the world, the largest building site in the world that's been there for over 180 years, and how do you drive it into becoming a more modern retail bank with the mutual values? For me, it was all about the people. It was a lot about the last question, which we just talked about around, what does it mean to be an agile organization? What are the misconceptions? We had a lot of conversations around, if the wind blows or if the window's open, all the post-its going to fall on the floor, and so your agile project is dead. So there's a lot of misconceptions around it. But for me, it was about, for business agility, it was about how do you create the environment to allow people to be able to experiment, but also deliver outcomes at pace. And from a Nationwide perspective, it was really about that cultural change, about treading outside of your jobs. Everyone had a job, project manager, product manager, but they could never extend it outside of that job role. So that was a problem for me, because in reality, you hire good people and they flex their roles. Second thing was the ability to wait and ask for permission to do everything. So decision matrix around decisioning and governance and all that stuff. And again, I think the ability to work in ambiguity and the ability to ask for forgiveness is the key tenets of being a more agile organization. And we had to do that for Nationwide. Sorry, that was a bit longer than 60 seconds.
That's okay. We're here to learn. And I've learned something new from you there. And, it's not so much about, the condensed time we've got here today. It's about what nuggets can we take away. So these are seeds being sown into us today, and we need to go away and start germinating some beautiful flowers if I can use that metaphor. I don't know what responses we're getting in chat about how many of you are familiar with business agility, but keep it coming because we do have dedicated time where we're going to come back to what's being shared with us. And I want to move on to the next question. And I'm going to ask Umesh to start. Again, unfortunately, I'm going to time box you on this. How can business agility impact an organization's bottom line and the overall competitiveness? And I ask this question here because in the context of today's webinar topic, how to dominate your industry sector. So back to the question, how can a business agility impact an organization's bottom line and overall competitiveness? Over to you, please.
I'll give a quick example, and you can tell me how it helped. So in that mortgage example I used for Nationwide, we digitized that whole journey and we changed it for our brokers because we do buy to let mortgages and we do prime mortgages. So people that buy as customers, people have residential homes. So we rebuilt that. So what? Okay, customers can interact with us better, everything else. When COVID hit in the UK, we had to give everyone mortgage holidays. That means people that couldn't afford because they weren't working, so we had to give mortgage holidays. That process for most banks took weeks and sometimes months. Because of the way we built and the way we developed our Agile team, we were able to make that change in 13 minutes. So maybe you can help me dissect that one, Femi, in terms of so how does that help the bottom line? Well, it allows us to be much more fleet of foot for change, right? It allows us to serve our customers relatively quickly. In that case, 13 minutes, very, very quick for a bank. And B, it allows us to take a lot, and I think it was Doris's question, how does the operational feedback come into this? And ops, they're integral to the team. If you don't know what the complaints are, you don't know where the issues are, it's the people that touch the customer the most. So that's what drives business agility and how you impact bottom line. It's through action, but it's also through these moments, right? Because pandemic, we never thought would happen. When it did, we had to do some serious change relatively quickly. I'll pause there.
Thank you for answering Doris's question, because I can now move that to the done column on our Kanban board. And I just want to quickly share some feedback on the question that I asked, and we're going to close the poll in a minute. 25 respondents so far to the question of how many of you are familiar with business agility. And it's no surprise, 67% are familiar, 33% were not familiar. And I'm going to say from now onwards, because of this webinar, they are now familiar with business agility. So thank you. We can end that poll now. And that should give us an opportunity to move on to the next question, which I'm just going to ask Chrissy in the same time box. Kindly help us to share some light. How does becoming an agile organization provide a competitive edge in the market? So we've heard from Umesh the what. Now let's hear from you the how.
I'll try and do that without using my hands, because Umesh has a thing about using my hands. So I will pivot on the example Umesh used, and I think during the pandemic, I wasn't with you in Nationwide because I had finished my engagement, and I actually didn't realize that based on the work we had done and the work you continued, 13 minutes, you said 13 minutes it took to reconfigure the teams during the pandemic in a way. Wow, that's incredible. So when we talk about competitive edge, I mean, that is a phenomenal example to use, right? Because you can imagine organizations going through significant amount of effort, days, time to really figure out, okay, how do we then go about the way we work? Because if your teams have not been configured in a way that they are together on outcomes, product focused, and as Umesh mentioned something at the beginning, I don't know if people picked up on it enough, like bringing the work to the people and not people to the work, that whole dynamics, right? So if you have fixed teams that are configured enough around products and organized around products towards your business outcomes, and you are able to nimbly adapt in this way, that competitive edge is astronomical, right? It's phenomenal.
Mm.
Because then the money you save, the cost you save, and also beating your competitors to releasing new solutions to the market, that's the difference, right? Because often than not, it's the time spent behind the scenes trying to understand, oh, this is happening. How do we do it? How do we go about it? Who do we need? Do we need to go and pinch someone from that team, that one from that way, that one from there, that one from there? You disrupt them, you form this, they have to form, they have to figure out themselves how they operate, where they go, the outcome. So you can see how it takes time, right? You're already on the back foot in terms of competitive agility, right?
Mm.
So for me, it's more than 60 seconds, sorry, Femi. For me, it's that example was exemplary. So having that focus around your structure, intentionality around business agility and going for it and configuring yourself in a way that enables you to do that, that is your competitive edge, because then you can.
That's fantastic.
Anytime.
That's great. Thank you so much. So I want to move on to something that is a follow-on from this. And let's just say company A for agnostic. Company A wants to create an agile organization. And the first thing they do, well, not the first thing, but amongst other things, they adopt agile practices. So here's the question now to you, Umesh. What are some measurable improvements in performance as well as productivity? And we're going to now give you 10 seconds extra to make it 70 seconds, because we've got two different aspects to look at: performance, productivity.
Yeah, so the concept of OKRs, so objective key results, is key. So rather than your milestones, etc., we delivered this widget or we delivered this capability or this platform, is key, because then you can actually go, right, so if the outcome is we need to increase our sales funnel, we need to increase our ability to manage prospects, well, then you've built something in order, and that as that gets consumed, you can measure how that impacts the customer. Well, how does that work for operations staff? Well, they get less complaints. Okay, we can measure that. We can measure that back to their outcome. How does it work for the people that are supporting the platforms? Well, there's less outages, so we can measure that platform.
Fantastic.
In Henry's example, one of his questions, and I hope I've got this right, in kind of farming, it's like, well, how much do you involve the customer in your planning process around your growth product and your SME product? Because then you know what the complaints are going to be, you know what their challenges are, so you can then develop your product or your SME holding capability around what the needs are. So it's how do you measure that capability? And that was a quick example of a sales journey, but you could apply that to your journey in farming in exactly the same way. Different context, totally get it, but it's the same method.
That's fascinating. OKRs and impact on operations. I don't want to go through the whole list, but you've mentioned, reduction in complaints and I don't know whether we're talking about a DevOps environment here, but measuring live cases, and the list goes on and on and on. So I want to move forward with the next question, and this time I'm going to stay with you, Umesh. Okay? Because this question is a leadership question. From a leadership perspective, what are the specific benefits for leaders in an agile organization compared to, guess what, the traditional, conventional organization that we referred to earlier on? So again, we're looking at two perspectives here, but with a focus on agile organizations.
Look, organizations have been successful for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So they can't be completely wrong how they do things. So the big difference for me within a business agility or an agile organization to a more traditional is you understand more about how the organization works in the context of what you're trying to do. So if it's a customer interaction, if you're trying to reduce cost, it's not just the top line stuff you understand how that impacts the person on the ground, the customer, and everything in between. A lot more. There's a lot more data. And in doing so, you do a lot more planning. And that was another misconception from before is, well, you do agile, there's no planning, right? You just kind of crack on and do things. No, you got a lot more planning, but you have a lot more data to manage. So to answer your question, your executives or your leaders actually understand how the business works. And I mean, that's, I don't want to criticize anyone, but I think that's a fundamental need for any leader to understand how their business works. But I appreciate that doesn't always happen.
Okay, and you know the response you've just shared with us there. I hope it answers Phil's question. Sorry, Philemon's question, not Phil. My apologies. Philemon asked the question in chat, and I don't want to go over your response again, but I hope that it's a starting point for the, for the use case that was referred to there. So we can move that question to having been completed now, because that would enable us to now move on to our next question. Okay. Now, staying with you, Umesh, and I'm going to this time ask for Kwasi to share some thoughts after Umesh. There are so many different types of teams. I mean, I've personally experienced team topologies in action. Okay, can you share with how leaders can foster a culture of agility within their teams?
So for me, I mean, team topologies, and if you're not familiar with it, just shows you a way of how you organize yourself around a particular problem, whether it be software, whether it be agriculture, whether it be, but also what problem you're trying to solve. The first thing is you have to involve the teams. They're the people, it's their environment, it's not your environment, it's their environment. So you have to involve them and say, you want to change this to fix this problem, and allow them the time to be able to fix that problem. And I think that's really, really important. I think the other part of it is it's the why and the so what. So why are you trying to change? So you're trying to fix this problem. You can do it in a traditional way. Why are you trying to change? So there's got to be a burning platform for change in order to drive it. So in some of my nationwide examples, when we did digital transformation, it was because we weren't digital, right? And our competitors were eating our breakfast. Okay, so we want to be digital. Well, why? You think you can drive more sales. Maybe that's not the case, but you have a clear, ubiquitous outcome that everyone's relentlessly going after. There's no one running off this way. There's, Usain Bolt, everybody's going in the same direction. And I think that's what really drives the benefit of it.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kwasi.
Yes.
What would you like to add?
Yeah, I will add that as leaders, you also have to be involved, or go first, or be first, or go last. I think Simon Sinek says leaders eat last, or something, Yeah, yeah, precisely. But you have to be involved in this whole adoption and the whole agility piece. You cannot just arm's length say you are the folks that needs to do it. I'm just here, I'm just monitoring. So what does that do, right? It encourages the people to say, oh, my leader is also putting themselves out there, being part of the change, because change is scary, change is uncomfortable, and also being vulnerable. Leaders being vulnerable in front of their people to say, I don't know this, we're going to figure out together, we're going to learn together, we're going to configure ourselves together. That speaks volumes. And folks, the culture, because we're talking about how leaders can foster a culture of agility, the culture then starts to really, it changes. It really makes a difference when everyone is involved in this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I'm just about to run out of time, but I really have a few more fascinating questions coming up.
Sure.
I don't want to do an injustice of leaving without asking these questions. So these are going to be rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Firstly, Kwasi, what are the first steps an organization should take to begin their journey into business agility? Rapid fire, quick.
Rapid fire. I think Umesh touched on this, and he mentioned the OKRs piece. There has to be an objective, a goal, a vision. There has to be an understanding of why, right? And then following on from, okay, now if we know our why, what is it? What does business agility mean for us? Because for every organization, it looks different. The configuration looks different, but understanding the components that leads to it, you have to start with a why.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. Umesh, over to you, please.
So apart from purpose, it's about what are you going to invest in? I don't just mean money, but what are you going to do to enable that, both as leaders and as an organization? So if you understand the problem, but you're not willing to change, you're not willing to provide time and capability or investment, whatever it is,
right,
then again, it's the same problem. You're not allowing that to happen. So that would be the other thing, I think. And in all the organizations I've been in, that's been the key thing, that sponsorship and allowing people to do it.
Okay, so I want to build on that response you've just shared with us there, Umesh. What role does leadership play in ensuring a successful transition to an agile organization?
Yeah, so it's that endorsement, it's that support, whatever you want to use. Everyone has a leader. I had a boss in Exco, and as Kwasi said, sometimes they don't understand. Sometimes they don't want to say they don't understand. But you gotta unlock that conversation to go, look, you need to trust me that this is going to give us improvement. I'll put my badge on the table and say, trust me, this is going to work, and we'll show you benefit incrementally. We'll show you on a daily basis. But you need to get past that first step of trust.
Right. Building trust, that's quite key. So I want to move on to something that stayed in my mind when Kwesi shared the presentation on oak agility. And this next question, I'd invite Kwesi to start. How important is it to have expert guidance or consultancy during the initial stages of that transition to an agile organization?
I'll be quick on this one, and I would love to hear Umesh's view on this as well. I think it's a classic case of I'm not going to use what I was going to use because of being insensitive. It's a classic case of the unknown unknowns, right? If you don't know where you're going and then you are leading the direction to where you want to go as your future, it's like you're going to end up somewhere completely different. It might be the great utopia. It might be completely where you don't want to, right? So I think having the expert guidance in the initial stages, the questions that we'll be talking about, the purpose, the why, the benefits, the sponsorship, we can surface all of that out, get the structure going, get the people mobilized, get the things designed, and then together with you, we walk to the point where you are happy to carry on. So that's why I think it's important to have that expert guidance in the early days, because otherwise we'll just
fantastic.
Again,
fantastic.
Umesh, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sorry.
Just before Umesh, this reminds me of the good old day of when we're using maps to drive. In some cases, you might print the directions. In some cases, I've seen some people foolishly holding a map and driving. Okay? And unfortunately, they had an accident. And then technology evolved, and we had something called a satellite navigator. And life became easier. And all people need to do is key in their destination, and the technology guided them. That consultant guided them to their destination. And I'm going to pass the baton on to Umesh now to share his thoughts.
I think it's essential to have experts to help you. When we've done this before, we've always had a 200 bike model. So you have someone sat at the back watching you on a tandem bike, and then you're learning from them. Then you switch roles, and then they coach you, and then you become an expert. The satellite navigation example is interesting because the first person to use it in anger died because they followed it blindly, and they lost the skill to be able to read a map. So I do think there's aspects of that we just need to be careful of. The other thing, which as you mentioned, map, I think is really important. There's a chap called Simon Wardley, and he talks about this in his seminars about, as you're in an organization and you're trying to drive agility or you're trying to drive change, you go in any other aspect of life, you have a map. You know where you are and you know where you're going. In an organization, you have a vision, you have a strategy, you have a mission. It doesn't tell you where you are and doesn't tell you where you're going. So I think you need to build those maps in your organization. As part of your purpose journey, you need to be like, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. And that's your map. And that's your team's map in order to drive it. But I think experts is essential.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I wish I could carry on and ask a lot more enlightening, insightful questions. Unfortunately, I've just been notified that I've only got one question left that I can ask. And this is going to be a very, very short question. I'm going to ask you, starting with Kwesi. What is one recommendation you offer the participants today who are either involved in an agile transformation journey or have a close involvement to someone who can actually start that journey? Tracy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would probably just say get yourself informed, or seek out insights, knowledge, understanding, have conversations, seek out people that are in this space, might be considered subject matter experts, and just soundboard some ideas also with them to understand it, because it can be a lonely place if you're trying to figure something out and you are in it and you are not really having a different perspective coming in. But yeah, I think that's probably what I would say. Just seek out some knowledge and some insights and some guidance.
Thank you so much. Umesh?
Yeah, just building on that, do all that, get some experts, read, and then experiment, right? You're going to get it wrong. Yeah, before you get it right. That's how all these things work. And I think you got to experiment and figure out what's right for you. Every model out there, every process, whether you're doing Scrum, whether you're doing Kanban, whether you're doing Prince, or whichever format you're following, it's never going to work exactly for your organization. You tailor it.
And one word comes to mind from earlier on. Two words, actually. Relentless pursuit. Be unrelenting. And on that note, my panelists, Tracy, Umesh, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, guess what? Your job's not done.
Okay.
We've just gone through the questions. And panelists. So we have a number of questions left. I'm going to time box these to a maximum of 5 minutes. Luckily, we've responded to majority of the questions that came in chat. We had a question from Doris about how you optimize operations as a large organization. That's been responded in live. We had a question from Henry Abraham about having 30 staff and being at the growth stage. And thankfully, both of you have shared some insights on that. And we had another question from Philemon about how to sell agility use case to a CEO. Two things I want to say there. Number one, Umesh touched upon a live case scenario about how to build a use case for that. But Kwesi has also mentioned something that if we were to give you a short answer, personally, I would say we're misleading you by giving you a short answer in a webinar. It's not as short as that. There's a wider conversation to be had. Organizations actually spend a great deal of time to actually build that agility use case. And guess what? That question we asked earlier on about the role of a consultancy or the expert guidance, that's where they come in, because they've done this several times. So I hope that's been answered. I think we have one or two outstanding questions here. The first one is from Henry Abraham. It's not so much a question, maybe an elaboration of a previous comment that was shared. What they're saying here is that we meet farmer groups face-to-face to introduce our products. And I'd also advise on their more general farming issues where we can. We aim to respond to the farmer's specific context and needs individually. And when I hear those words that you've shared with us, two things come to mind. First of all, customer centricity. When you say that, you aim to listen to them. And the second thing is the fast feedback loop. By saying you respond to their specific context and needs individually, that's referring to feedback. So I hope we can park that question. And then there's one outstanding. How would you help C-level? Umesh, you might want to take this, and I give you 59 seconds. How would you help C-level leaders? Oh, you've read it.
I've read it, and I was going to respond. So I think it's a really interesting one, Renee. Right. So if you don't know if you don't know you're the problem, it's a difficult one, and particularly for a C-level executive. And if they're not as humble or have that humility, they might not want to listen, right? And hierarchy plays a place. I think showing them, I'll give them examples of people that have done this before at their level and how they've enabled it works quite well. Getting involved in networks with them, if you can, or showing them practical use cases where you could experiment. I've experienced that where the problem is the C-level executive, and that's the only way you can do it. You got to coach people that don't want to be coached. In fact, Quasi helped coach someone that didn't want to be coached, and it's not an easy task, but you can do it.
Yeah, if I may add to that, for Rene, so absolutely spot on what Umesh said. I think it's people at that level, again, that whole vulnerability piece of not wanting to be seen that they are either A, they don't know, or B, they are the ones that are at fault. Cultural backgrounds, cultural implications, and everything else. So there's a lot there. Statuses, rank, privileges, you name it. There's a lot. Comes back to that coaching aspect. And there's several ways that you could do it to help reveal information, reveal the system to itself. And I go back to almost the same point I made to Philemon as well. Use data, use the data, right? What is it that you have today that is leading to the point where the said C-level executives are becoming the blockers? Can you prove sort of the flow or the stream in terms of where things are either staying and delaying and costing so much, right? Use data to kind of also back your conversation. But then fundamentally speaking, the leaders also obviously have to have that coaching and that support to help them. It helps when they are talking to someone that they believe is either their equal or peer or an expert, that they can be vulnerable and they can be open in those circumstances, but they might not listen or hear from someone internally within the organization. Again, it's that status around privilege. There's all sorts of things in the coaching world that we expose it exposes our eyes to, that we can help individuals to. But there's a whole lot in that, Rene. It's not just as simple as we said, but these are the things that, as Umesh shared, and what I've added to, you could.
In extreme examples, Rene, you could just ignore them and try.
In extreme, yes.
Seek forgiveness, right? As they say, prove it that it works, and then use that evidence to show what you've been achieved. You've been able to.
Thank you so much, panelists. So we do not have any outstanding questions in chat. And this is an opportunity for us in the next minutes we've got left to now start to prepare for landing. As you will do when you're on that aircraft, you get the warning sign, ladies and gentlemen, we're now preparing for descent. And at the start, I shared some expectation that when we get to the end of our session today, we were going to learn practical strategies and best practices for fostering agility within various organizations. One thing we have generalized, okay, in this webinar is that we've talked about organizations as if they're one single type, single geographical location, and single product sector. The reality is organizations come in different sizes. Organizations are distributed across the world in so many different cultural contexts, and they have different product sets. But one fundamental constant is the principles and the practices we've shared today apply regardless of geography, size, location. Now, to varying extents, you would apply some of those principles differently. You will scale up, you will scale down. You will shrink, you will enlarge. But overall, the principles apply the same. Hopefully, you're now better equipped to respond effectively to market trends and changes, especially in today's world of Gen AI. And you mentioned Kwesi have been able to share valuable insights into how organizations have successfully embraced agility. Okay. Now, we've shared with you LinkedIn profiles in chat. Please take the opportunity to connect with those LinkedIn, myself, with Kwesi, with Umesh, because the conversation must not stop here. Okay. So what we want to do is just share a little bit more. I've got a PowerPoint slide that I was going through. Okay, Immaculata, do you want to take this forward from here?
Yes, I think
Thank you so much, because you've got the order of the slide, so it will help.
Thank you. I think Kwesi would like to touch on a business agility training that is coming up.
All
There's
right, okay.
also a discount code for participants, which we will put
Okay.
in the chat box to access this training. Thank you. So over to you, Kwesi.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share and offer this business agility training that we'll be putting on in a couple of months for attendees. If you are here, you share your or you are interested, you can use your email address that you registered for this webinar, and you get the discount. 15% discount is applied or will be applied if you're interested. But also, if you're interested for a corporate training development for us to come in and work with your organization or a set number of leaders, we'll be absolutely happy to do that with you, which will be tailored specifically for your sector. This one will be more around the skills, what to look out for, how to go about working with your organization to start shifting that focus and shifting the dial towards business agility. So this is available. I don't know if the team is able to make that available. You can get that, or you can just email academy@oakagility.coach, which is further down in this document. So that's the email address to contact us if you're interested.
That's great, fantastic. So are we done with that? You've got the email code. People can take a screenshot if they'd like to. Yeah, I wouldn't go into my personal affiliation and interest with Oak Agility, but I am who I am thanks to Oak Agility. Gracie, and I want to thank you for that. Okay, so with your permission, do I want to go back to wrapping up and talking about UKCC?
Yeah, Immaculata, you can stop sharing now. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on for where I was, okay, about UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Now, this is quite fascinating. UKCC was established in 2016 with the support of BIT as a member-based association. So UKGCC facilitates and promotes bilateral trade between the United Kingdom and Ghana via 3 specific platforms of networking, advocacy, and trade services. Now, specifically, when we talk about networking, the UKGCC hosts several events throughout the year. I think somewhere we've got the calendar of the event for the year, but that will be shared very soon. Or if it's not shared, I will give you pointers as to how to get to them. And what's the why behind these events throughout the year? It gives members of the platform to build and raise their profile, to get valuable personal referrals and word of mouth advertising, which enables them to explore business opportunities. From the perspective of advocacy, as a strong, reputable, and most recognized voice of the Ghana UK business community, UKGCC directly engages with both the Ghana and the UK governments, with policymakers, opinion leaders, and all relevant stakeholders by lobbying and advocating on the interests and concerns of its members. And finally, with trade services, the UKGCC facilitates bilateral trade between UK and Ghana through advocacy, capacity building, and market entry research. Now, I want to share with you that you can follow UKGCC on social media, okay? To stay up to date with news about them and its member companies, you can follow them on Facebook. You can follow them on Instagram, and you can also follow them on X, as they call it. And if I can, I might just want to give the opportunity to share those details with you. Okay, so let's see whether I can get to share my screen. Okay, so for those who might want to capture or take a screenshot, this is an opportunity. Saves me having to read out the handles just in case I miss out a character or mispronounce it for you. So here you go. That's the Facebook handle. There they are on Instagram, and on X, you can find them on these handles. They also have a YouTube channel, which is UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. And then on LinkedIn, you can find them on these handles. You can contact them on this email, info@ukgcc.com.gh. So if you want to find out more about how to become a member, you can send an email to this email address. There's a phone number here for Pearl. And that's where I'm going to end my moderation today and pass on over to Immaculata. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Femi. Thank you, Kwesi. Thank you, Umesh. And thank you to all our audience for joining in. I hope this session was interactive and you were able to learn a lot about business agility. We will share with you the business training details via email as well as the discount code. And the link to this webinar will be on our YouTube page, so you can always visit it and you can share with your connections and network to also explore and learn about business agility. Thank you so much once again and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Femi, for organising this as well. And Kwasi.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, have a
Bye-bye.
good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Thank you.